Welcome to the Comstock channel. My name is Breann Hendrickson. Today I have David with us. Welcome, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Where does the Sierra Environmental Group play in this role? Or what is their role in this?
Well, in general, the environmental group that's been most in opposition to this has been generally anti-ethanol. It sees ethanol as sustaining combustion engines, and they would like to eliminate combustion engines and gasoline and fossil fuel. And so they therefore are using this CO2 controversy to seek their larger objective, is the way I see it being played out there. I've not ever seen these people being friends of farmers and on that part of it. So
those who took Navigator's money just pocketed the cash and the deal died. Do you see any possible outcome other than eminent domain or another dead project?
I see that project as being dead. The general model that it was put under, with how much they were going to pay for the easements and everything. I'll give you an example. I have one friend who had both Navigator and Summit Carbon Solutions that were going through his property. He ended up with a very lucrative, I guess is the way I'll describe it, deal with Carbon Solutions, and he was offered actually a fraction of the amount from Navigator. And he went ahead and he also gave Navigator an easement. But his logic about that, he says, I gave it less than a 50% chance that it would be successful. And so therefore he would just keep the money. And that's the way it works. Right now, I believe that Summit has spent something like $900 million out here. And quite honestly, if people, I'm a little surprised, and I can't probably disclose what the payment actually is, but city folks would think farmers on this route won the lottery. I have pipeline under some of my property, which has actually a hydrous pipeline, and it has caused me no problem, other than when we did do some pattern tiling, we had to accommodate for it. They checked the safety of it. They called me up even I think it was last spring, and said that their pig that they run through it had found some weak spot, and they were going to be coming in and repairing it, which they did, or whatever. And so I will point out on the safety side, they always want to compare that one situation in Louisiana as their big example because it's the only one they got. And in that case, it wasn't apples and oranges that was coming out of this gas that was coming out of a refinery, and it had other stuff in it. It wasn't just the CO2. If it would only been CO2, probably would have been much less of an instance. The other thing I would point out that I don't know how many got new vehicles, but if you let's just say we'll go back and you got a 2010 pickup, and then you're going to go in and buy one today. Would you say that the one you're going to buy today wouldn't have substantial safety features that far exceed the one you did in 2010? Well, they're going to put the new technology and the safety technology into these pipelines. And you're buying a 2023 pipeline is what you're buying, not a 2010 one or 2001 or whatever. And so I think that, I have some confidence in the safety that these people will do a good job with it. I guess it's up to each individual, believe it or not. So that's their choice.
With the Summit being a little bit more successful, obviously more than the Navigator project, do you see more projects coming along now that one is starting to make way, or do you think it's just going to be one for right now and then later on down the road?
I guess what I see right now is Summit Carbon Solutions completing their project. And then there might have to be a separate entity or project uh, that will pick up some of the Navigator lines. So they had some large partners in there. Poet, for example, with their plants. I cannot see Poet with all their plants being shut out of this CO2 benefit or revenue, nor do we want them to be. They need to find a I guess a vehicle so that they can participate in the CO2 sequestration from their plants. For us to get full value of this on the demand side is where it is. And so um, I don't know if there might be some small add-ons of a plant here and there into the Carbon Summit one from those plants now that they're the Navigator thing is dead, and it's not going to be resuscitated. But there are. This is like a $5.5 billion project for Summit, and they have John Deere and Harold Hamm and whatever the major investors inside it, and they've gone far enough right now. They're going to go. They're going to do what it takes, and they're going to spend what they have to take and whatever. But and so I guess we'll see. But ultimately, if there is another project, it would be to pick up some of the I guess the plants that were on the failed Navigator project, and whether they could be incorporated into the Carbon Solutions project or not, or to what degree, I do not know. I don't think they know yet. I think I did ask this question to Summit. And then when I asked the question, they didn't have an answer yet. They were going to have to analyze it. They made some of these pipes, with larger capacity, with the idea that they potentially could, over time, maybe increase the amount of CO2. But actually, I don't know that they expected Navigator to fail, but that's a pretty good chunk to have to incorporate into the system. And there'll probably have to be some combination made.
Won't carbon storage projects like this just encourage companies to emit more carbon?
That's an interesting take on it, but I don't know that that's how it will work. Everybody out here in every industry, doesn't really matter what it is trying to get their carbon score down. They're all trying to get toward this zero carbon score. Well, actually, what they're doing here with this CO2 and where Summit makes its income is it sells these carbon credits to major companies. And so, John Deere will be buying some, whatever. And so it will, so it's going to cost these companies to buy these carbon credits. And that pretty well eliminates the incentive for them to make more carbon because it's an expense on their side.
What is the estimated extra corn demand if this goes through? In Iowa last year, when crush margins were excellent, our plants were running full capacity. Where will fuel demand come from if plants want to expand with this new income on their end?
Well, that'll be interesting. I don't know if there'll be a lot of new plants built, but I'm going to suggest that most all the existing plants, for an added investment, if they've got the revenue from it, can significantly increase their capacity. And so from what it is now. And so, we're looking at, what is it, 5 billion, is where we're at now. I've heard some estimates of maybe 2 to 3 billion bushel is over, and that would include the whatever we're looking at with the sustainable aviation fuel and stuff. And so, and the way it looks, we're going to need it. If you can extrapolate a 3 billion bushel carryover for a year from now, if we don't cut back corn acres enough, and we got a trend line yield. And so and unfortunately, none of this is going to happen in a time frame to change that.
How does this pipeline contribute to the demand for corn and ethanol?
How does this pipeline contribute to demand for corn and ethanol? How it does it is that, for example, Japan has talked to the ethanol industry, and it says that, gee, we'd really like to buy your ethanol, but the carbon score is too high. But if you could bring us, if you could make ethanol with a lower carbon score, we will buy it. Again, California imports its ethanol from Brazil. Evidently, they think through their calculations in California that Brazil's ethanol has a lower carbon score than ours in the Midwest, and so we will gain those types of markets. I guess GREET is going to make ethanol qualify for aviation, for the sustainable aviation fuel, but the lower the carbon score, that adds value to it, and it'll make it much more readily the base fuel for that, and that continues to go on into Europe. Europe doesn't accept a lot of our ethanol. There's blocks of it and stuff, for carbon scores. And so we can get this carbon score down to a level where CO2 sequestration would put it. We will open up enormous amount of markets worldwide. And the beauty of it is that we can do this ourselves. It actually makes us more energy independent. We're to the point now where we're the largest oil producer in the world, and we're now moving into an export position there. And so this is to our benefit that way too, from a national security standpoint, if we can produce more of our own fuel. And I've always pointed out that we've never had a hurricane bother the ethanol industry, where sometimes there's risk there to the petroleum industry. And so we gain a lot of depth, I guess, in our energy independence, if we can come with a larger amount of ethanol.
There is a lot of chatter starting about site sequestration. Many believe this will be a more viable avenue because it doesn't require a pipeline. Are you hearing anything official on this?
I guess I got to quite understand the question, but they're saying that there's some other type of sequestration, but these situations would be pretty local. Maybe one plant somewhere would do it. There are a few other avenues toward sequestration, but for a plant to do the development and make it happen, it just isn't going to happen on the scale that we have to have it. It's just, here and there, somebody's going to come up with something and try something, and that's fine. But it's going to be even farther down the road, and it's not going to be of a scale that we need to basically meet the problem that we have coming at us.
All right, and then I got another question in. They asked, what are your farmers saying about the 45Z tax credit from ethanol plants?
I've got to maybe educate myself on that just a little bit more. I mean, I've heard of this 45Z thing, but I guess I can't answer that right off the top here on that. I have to go back and research it. I did go to the carbon conference in Des Moines too, and that was one of the topics. And for some reason or another, I guess I didn't listen closely enough. Sorry.
Overall, what would you like people to know about all of this?
I guess I'd like them to understand the big picture as to, what we have a real problem, what we're going to have to deal with here with this burdensome carryover supply of corn, that we're extremely poised, that it's going to get worse. I do not want to fall back into those good old days when corn was $3 and we were getting LDPs, and we were begging the politicians in Congress for a farm bill, to keep us in business. That's what the whole ethanol industry was all about, and was a value added so that we could free ourselves from that bondage of Washington in subsidies. And here is a way that it can happen. And I think that just as we got behind the ethanol industry, this is just the next phase of where this is that can get us where we need to be, to basically absorb this great productivity that we have, as far as corn production, in the United States, and continue to support our tax base, continue to support land values. As I said, the ethanol industry has been the greatest contributor to wealth in my lifetime. I go back and we had Norman Borlaug with the Green Revolution, and maybe there was another couple of things in there that were. I mean, there was a time when exports really took off on the United States, great grain robbery and things like that. But this, is in that category, is what it is to the ethanol industry, and this is just the next phase of it, and it's all. It isn't that they have to go and get anything from the government at this point in time. It's all there in the existing law, and to make this happen. And so I'm glad that we have a solution like this, because I'm happy that we do, as I don't know what else it would be.
Will carbon sequestration in this country really make that much difference worldwide if China and India don't get on board?
Well, I hope that China and India do get on board. I think that that's a big picture, and I can't solve all the world's problems, but I'm looking at the problems that we're facing right here and recognizing this as a solution to that. And I guess that there'll have to be minds much smarter than I and diplomats and such that make this happen otherwise. But I'm not going to be defeatist or whatever from the standpoint that, oh gosh, India is going to ruin all this. I hope this has a benefit to, I hope there is a benefit. I can't imagine that in many ways that it doesn't. I mean, by sequestering, CO2. But as far as it solving, climate change, no. That's just going to be, but that's just going to be one part of it. We're going to have to keep working.
Do you think that China and other countries will, once we kind of get more laid out, jump on board? Or do you think, are they just kind of waiting for us to do it?
I think India will even buy our low carbon ethanol. That's where it's at. And China probably will too. By exporting this ethanol, basically that is the next way we export corn. And we can have a whole nother, seminar here on how we've kind of we've lost our dominance in the export market. And we lost it in soybeans, and corn is going in exactly the same direction and quicker than people realize. And I'm going to go clear back again, if I saw help coming from the livestock industry, but I don't. And so this is the thing that jumps out, that it has a material capability to make a real difference, for corn demand and keep us solvent and growing here in the Midwest.
All right, that'll do it. I want to thank everybody for jumping on live today. David, thank you for also jumping on live with me. Hope we can do this sometime soon.
I'll be glad to come back.
You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.